Dango Shop is the kind of jam game where if it was someone's first jam game, they'd stop playing jam games. I had to use Python to run it, but it didn't work with the most recent version of it, so I had to use an older version of Python to get it to run, and when it did run, it wasn't fun and had the most minimal graphics imaginable. The page has a pixel art image of a goat, leaving you with some impression that the game would have any art at all, but it doesn't. You use WASD, space, and H and J to try and put the balls on a stick to satisfy the customer orders, which is already an uncomfortable hand placement on the keyboard, but then the game just ends up being so minimal that you realize that there was no point in spending all the time trying to get Python to run it in the first place. This felt like a waste of my time. Maybe next jam. Obscene Crime Scene committed the cardinal sin of no forethought as to the player's experience. There's no way of knowing what's going on, how to play, and when you get to the questions that seem to come out of nowhere, the timer takes so long. It feels like a bigger waste of time than it already did. It's somewhat of a gray area to criticize design decisions for a jam game, but the fact that you have to wait for the entire duration of the timer to finish before and after answering is grueling, and it ruins the whole experience. The visual presentation stands out, and initially it felt polished and worth inviting my partner to play with me as it was co-op only. But halfway through the second question, I turned to her and said, "This sucks." Maybe next jam. st-RAT-egy, lose to win, is not fun, and its pacing is off. It's got tower defense like mechanics, but as soon as you start the day, you sit and you wait with nothing to see. Its premise is top-notch as you try and get attacked just enough for a hero to come help defend your walls, but don't dominate the enemy so hard that the hero doesn't feel compelled to come at all. The issue is that your progress is slow, the game is slow, and there's nothing compelling me to start the next round when I know I have to watch this animation again and receive no feedback as to how I'm doing other than an unhelpful phrase that pops up on the screen. Good idea. I can tell a lot of work went into this game. I just found the in-between round times really hard to just sit there and watch, and I found the feedback frustrating, and I did not know how to progress, but I might come back to this one. There was like meat on the bones, but I feel like I couldn't get it off the bones. Oh no, its delivery doesn't have much substance, but the music works for the game, and the driving feels good, and in a driving game, especially a jam game, good driving is all that really matters. I wish there was more good jam. Coat for the Goat by RedRebelInteractive and Dedalomaniac has 4 parts that blend neatly together. You grab a sheep, you shear a sheep, you breed a sheep, and when things go south, you kill a sheep. This is all to get enough wool to make a coat for the goat. After brief tutorialization, it knows exactly what it wants from the player, and then once you're done, you're done. Good jam. Jom Terry is a co-op puzzle game that was charming until it wasn't. Puzzle games as jam games are a hard sell because it's a genre where the player is most likely to encounter a roadblock they cannot get past, and that was the case here. I was having fun with my co-op partner until we reached a point where we didn't know how to progress, and that was it. That's the end of the game. That's the end of the game for us. I'm not one to jump to guides without thoroughly looking for solutions first, but jam games by their nature don't have signposts or tips, or in a lot of cases, even great pacing. Designing levels to appropriately communicate to the player the intended mechanics is something that's often done in conjunction with playtesting, as well as a second or third design pass after the core game is there. But game jams don't afford the developers that possibility. All that being said, if you have a friend and a keyboard and are willing to sit close enough to them so that they can reach the arrow keys and you can be on WASD, I would recommend it. It's got those aha moments in a bite-sized package, and that's all I can ask for. Good jam. Orbyrinth by DMGregory is a puzzle that can be completed twice. There's the first puzzle, the game itself, that clicks when you slide a piece so that it meets another and your hero moves. Then, there's the second puzzle, more of a question, really. Why has this not been done before, in this way? There isn't much of a game in Orbyrinth. In fact, I'd argue it's lacking as a game where you do something. But, as an experiment, an idea,
A game jam entry as a proof of concept. It's something I want to see more of. Great jam.
Gacha Impact sucked me in more than I should have let it. I played it for 45 minutes, and I don't know if it's because it was good or it was addicting. This might seem like a pointless distinction, but it's an important one. Is someone who gets sucked into gambling at a casino having fun? No. I have found myself too many runs into Slay the Spire, Balatro, or even Cult of the Lamb not having any fun. But the loop was addicting enough that I pushed myself to keep going. Addiction aside, Gacha Impact combines gacha mechanics with an auto battler, and it's very compelling. But there is a point where you hit a hard wall in difficulty and it halts the progress, becoming unsatisfying pretty quickly. This is even echoed in the comments, but I agree with the general assessment, which is that it is fun, and despite gacha games' inherently addicting design, it's satisfying when you get the 5-star pulls. Good jam. His Greed Sickens Me. The title is apt, as it does. The Mouse King asks for more and more until he cannot be sated anymore when the timer ends. I never found out what the purpose of the bell was as it brings up an animal, but it's a satisfying jam game that doesn't ask much of your time, is visually compelling, and leaves a good impression. Good jam. Designed for Renters is another game where the inability to know how to progress influenced how I felt about it after finishing it. The simple line illustrations for the apartment works very well for the game's drab tone. It fit perfectly into the context of a game jam given its scope and premise. I could even see this evolving. Your apartment is a sentient being and you're trapped inside. The writing kept me captivated longer than most visual novels that I've tried, a genre that I really struggle with. A fan of visual novels or text-based games would probably love this, but unless the game is just exploring 2 rooms of your apartment, I'm sure there's more to enjoy, and I couldn't get to it. Good jam.
Hollow Thread by beachboogeyman leaves a strong impression with a narrative hook that had me play the game twice, and an artistic presentation that set the tone of the game well. I couldn't progress far into the game, and that's why I tried it twice. I wish I'd been able to, because I really wanted to see where the game was going. There's a menu where you can see how infected everyone is, as well as another where you can see how much they doubt you, so I know there's more to the game, but despite my best efforts and interacting with every possible wall and item I could, I wasn't able to progress. Jam entries are often this way, leaving you to take what you can from them and judge them based on that experience and that experience alone. There isn't another way to judge them or even a cultural impression to refer to. Even with little progress, though, I found myself thinking about the presentation afterwards, and the music, though simple, didn't feel repetitive and set the mood well, especially during the sudden tone change after you drink tea and take a nap.
That leads me to a point worth making here. A lot of these game jam entries don't have sound or music, and it's unsettling and can affect the experience of playing one a lot. It makes the game feel empty. So to all my fellow indie developers out there, put some kind of music and sound in, even if it's just some generic copyright-free thing. It makes a huge difference.
Great jam.
Spell the word. Unconscionable.
Ortographobia is a beautiful match of mechanics and presentation. The creature before you gives a word to spell, and every time you miss a letter or you take too long to type one, you lose health. The words are not easy to spell. They're obscure, and even if you did know them, the pressure from the music and sound effects leaves you unsure. The feeling of having to guess your way through a word you don't know feels remarkably similar to wandering around a space, collecting goats, stabbing bees, and spelling words for rabbit people. In both, there's a sense of confusion, but as you spell word after word, your confidence grows until you can't do it anymore. This is a perfect jam game. Small in scope, but it's executed so well that it feels bigger than it is. Great jam. Quick note, I was unable to play Commando Raid because it's Android only and BlueStacks wasn't working and I only have an iPhone. I only say this because my goal is to play literally every single jam game from the Toronto Game Jam, and so I have to tell you when I can't play stuff because I want to be thorough and fair. I don't remember how many entries I have left at this point, but hey, I don't know. Thank you to Isaiah, Earth of Fire, Counting Worms for subscribing to the Patreon. I love making content about indie games and all the silly videos that I've been able to make so far, and I would love to be able to do that more. I need a more active community to get the Discord going and get the polls going and get more feedback so I can improve the videos. So feel free to ask me any questions about direction you think that the Patreon should go. It's not as frequently updated as I would like at this point, trying to balance everything with money and jobs and life, and I would love to make this a full-time thing. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.